Hi, I'm Bolen, and today we're going to learn about upgrading physical RAM or memory and configuring that virtual memory that goes with configuring physical RAM. Both go hand in hand, and if we are to make our machine perform better, we need to address both issues. So let's take a look at the process we go through in upgrading physical RAM. Okay, first of all, we have to go out and determine the current RAM in use. And that gives us an idea of whether our RAM is adequate for the kinds of applications we are running or the operating system that we have installed. Now, recently, this particular unit has gone through an upgrade from Windows 7 to Windows 10 to Windows 11. And each of those were requiring a different amount of physical RAM for that operating system to run. And unfortunately, a little bit more each time, which reduces the amount of extra RAM available for applications. So determining the RAM in use that you currently have is the first thing to do. Then we use a utility like the free CPU-Z to identify our motherboard that we have in our system and the current physical RAM. It'll give us detailed information, what's installed. We'll even learn about the type of memory we have and if we have available slots already for us to add additional RAM, or will we have to pull out some of our current RAM and replace it with more robust, faster RAM. Then we want to look at Memory Configurator in order to calculate the new RAM DIMMs that we need to order and then insert those DIMMs. So we're going to go out to a website and I'll show you a quick configurator and take you through the actual process that I went through. Then I'll show you how we insert the memory chips into the motherboard and make certain they're in secure and incorrectly as well. And finally, we're going to confirm that all the RAM is recognized by our operating system on that so that we know that once we put it in, it is seen and can be utilized. Then we want to go out and configure the virtual memory for the changes to the amount of RAM that we just introduced into the system. All these steps we'll go through very slowly, and I'll put a timeline in the video so that you can see and go directly to any one area that you're interested in. So let's begin the process and take a look at our system to determine the RAM in use. Now, to do that, we use the system properties, and I'm going to take you real quickly to mine. And here we see my system properties, and I'd like to show you that you can see right now installed that I have here I have 16 gigabytes of RAM installed. Now, to get to the system properties, there are a couple different ways. The easiest way for me is to use my Windows key and hit the pause key. That takes me right there. The second way is to go into the Windows icon on my taskbar and right click and go to System. The third way to do that is to go to your Windows icon, click on it, and click on the Settings area, and then go to the System. So all those will do it. My easiest way to do it is hitting the Windows key and the pause key at the same time to bring up this information. So we see that I currently have installed 16 gigabytes of RAM, but I want more power. So we're going to introduce more RAM into our system. So how do we do that? Well, I've downloaded a free utility that I'll put in the link in the tutorial here that takes you to the site where you can download CPU-Z. Now, I have CPU-Z up, and you can see that I have an Intel Core i5 7600K. That means I'm have the 7th generation of the Intel processor, and the K means I can overclock it, which is what I've been doing. Now, that gives us some basic information on the processor itself, but what we're more concerned about is the motherboard. So I'm going to click on the motherboard tab, and there you can see that I have a Gigabyte manufactured motherboard, and the model is a Z270X Gaming K7 machine. And so that gives us some very important information on what we have. Then I click on the memory tab, and here I see the basic information that I have DDR4, double data rate 4. It's a dual channel system on that, and we can see that I have 16 gigabytes physically installed. Also, we can see the cache latency and other information about the timings of the chip I have installed as well. So we write those kinds of things down so we'll have it to refer to. Then I'm going to take you over to the SPD area, and then we can take a look at each slot that we have in the computer. And here we can actually find out that I've got a G-Skilled manufactured memory, and it is the part number is listed below. So I have exactly what's in the system on that. And then I can go to each slot. That's the first slot. I can drop down on that and go to the slot 2, and you'll see slot 2 is available. Also, I can go to slot 3, and it's populated, and slot 4 is not. So I've got slots 2 and 4 unpopulated, and that's because it's a dual channel system, and I'm only using one of those channels at this time. So what I want to do, and normally what you will want to do, is try to order the memory that has the same cache latency and speed as the current ones you have in the system. So once again, I'm going to come back over here to memory, and remember that I have this information about the type. It's a dual channel DDR4 that I have in there, and I can see also the cache latency of the one. Plus, because of the SPD on that, we can determine exactly what part and what manufacturer I have. So with that in mind, we can then go over to a web-based configurator and find the chips we might want to have. So what I do is I go over to, in my case, I'm going to take you over to Newegg's configurator, and all you have to type in is Newegg Memory Finder, and it'll take you to this link. And you see here that I have already keyed in the drop-down area the information I got from CPU-Z. And you'll see here as I come across my cursor, you'll see I keyed in, I'm using the motherboard. It's a Gigabyte motherboard, and some more information to ask for the type. Then I keyed in the actual model of the motherboard I had. And once I did that and hit apply, I ended up with 126 entries of possible memory that I could get. Now I happen to know that I have right now a G-Skill, so I can click on that as an option and reduce my search down to just the G-Skill memory. So that gives me a quick way to go down and start to find what's available. Now what's interesting is I had also from the CPU-Z the part number. And while I was at Newegg, I just keyed in the part number of what I had. And you'll see right there, there's my part number that I'm working with. And so I just keyed that in on the search area, and I dropped the C part out because that usually represents the color. And so I keyed in on that. In fact, I even found it with the C. So as a result of that, I was able to actually go out and purchase the exact same memory that's currently in my system. And so I got the exact same one and got it, and I'm all set. Now you won't be able to sometimes see on the memory cards necessarily the information about the part number or the information about the cache latency and other things you're working with. But by using CPU-Z, we can actually examine what our system currently has, and that helps us make certain we've got the same similar type of memory that we want to order as it's currently in our system. So with that information now, we've got and ordered the memory. I've received it. Okay, I've opened up the case now, and we're ready to begin to work inside the computer. But before we do that, we need to do a couple of things to protect ourselves and protect the computer. First, we need to totally unplug the computer from the power supply so that there's no power coming into the power supply unit. Then we want to press the on-off button and hold it down for about 4 seconds to drain any possible power that might be remaining in the capacitors of the unit. Then the third thing we need to worry about is electrostatic discharge, and especially with memory chips, this is a critical thing to worry about. So I'm going to put on and attach electrostatic bracelet to the side of the unit here that's attached to my hand on that. So you can see the bracelet is attached into the computer. So at this point, I'm ready to proceed. Now the first thing I'm going to do is open up the little side clamps that secure the dual inline memory modules into position on the motherboard that I'm going to put in. So I've opened those up. I've got my memory module here, and it has one notch that has to fit in correctly. And it's got little notches on the sides here that'll be used to clamp it in place on the motherboard. So aligning it correctly, making sure the notches match up correctly, I slowly insert it into the slots that are available. And then I want to press equally on each side of the slot and memory chip so it goes in place. And as it goes in place, the side notches catch the clips, and I reach down and tighten it up. I'll do it again for the second one. Once again, getting everything lined up correctly, the notch oriented right. I'm going to reach down, slide it in place, and as it slides in, it's in place. Takes a little finessing, working in place. There we go. And now I press down on equal sides on both sides. And the clips have come up and locked. I'm locking them in place. So they're all locked in place. So the clips on this side are locked, and all the clips on this side are locked. And we're done installing physically the new memory DIMMs, dual inline memory modules. Okay, well, I'm going to shut up the case now, and I'll come back to you as we test to see if it's being recognized properly by the system. Well, I've closed up the computer case, reattached the power cable to the power supply unit, turned on the system. It came up fine, and everything looks pretty good. But we need to check to see if the system really recognizes the fact that it has more memory. that all the memory modules were inserted correctly and that they were recognized by the operating system. Now, one way we could have done it is bring up the CMOS or UFI setup and take a look at the memory that is shown in the configuration. Or, once again, we can go back to our system properties to find out on that. So by hitting the Windows key and the pause key at the same time, we can bring up the system properties. We can also bring it up by clicking on the right-clicking on the Windows icon on your task bar and bringing up the system, or we can click on the Windows key and hit settings and come to System About, and that brings up our information, and you'll see that the device is in fact fully recognizing that I have 32 gigabytes of RAM installed, physical RAM. But now we need to take care of the virtual memory to make certain that we can get all the performance that that extra memory just gave us. So now let's go in and configure that information. So I'm going to turn off the drawing, and we're going to go in, and I'm going to go to the system, and we're going to now go click on the advanced system settings in the system properties that may be located differently on a Windows 10 or other version of the operating system. Right here is where it's located for me. I'll click on it, and it brings up system properties. Now with that, I want to go to the performance area of system properties. So I'm going to hit settings. And within that one, I want to click on the Advanced tab. And there, I'm going to click on the Change for Virtual Memory. And hit the Change one. That brings that one up. Now, normally, you might find the System checkbox right there, and the system will manage the page file for virtual memory. But I'm going to manually take care of that because the system doesn't always do a good job. So I'm going to undo that. First of all, I want to override and make none. So what I've done is chosen no page file and hit set on the C drive. Because on the C drive for me, I have an M.2 SSD card. And you do not want a lot of read writes to your SSD card or drives because it'll wear it out prematurely. On my U drive, though, I have a Western Digital black 1 terabyte physical hard disk drive. And so that's where I've been putting things, but it needs to be configured now for the new amount of memory that I have to take advantage. So I'm going to click on the U here to change that, and I'm going to change it so that I can set the initial size and maximum size on that. So what we do is we bring up our calculator, and there's my calculator, and I'm going to take my new 32 gigabytes of information, excuse me, and we need to configure it so it's in megabytes now. So I'm going to multiply it by 1024, and that gives me 32,768 megabytes. Now, what Microsoft says for Windows 10 and Windows 11 is you should also add an overhead of 257 megabytes in addition to the size of physical RAM you have. So to that, I'm going to hit Add and key in 257. And then find the result. And that 33025 is what I should put in. So I'm going to right click and select it, copy it, bring it over here to the initial size and paste it in with a Control V. Now the comma probably won't take, so I'm going to have to key this in manually. 33025 megabytes. So that allows me to have the full amount of RAM, physical RAM I have, plus the 257 megabytes for overhead and for some system files that have to go in place. Now the maximum size is also calculated at 3 times the amount we have of RAM. So I'm going to clear this out. Once again, I'm going to key in 32 gigabytes times 1024 to get it into megabytes. Then I'm going to multiply that all by 3. So I'm going to take it times 3, and that gives me my maximum amount of virtual RAM that I need. And I'm going to come over here and key that in as I calculate it, 98304. No commas in there. There we go. Now I hit set, and that'll be the new change on that. Now, if you don't have enough room, at least set the initial size on that for your virtual and make the maximum the same as your initial size. In this case, the system will expand as needed to go to the maximum size. So I'm going to hit set. We'll see the change up here. And now the change is in place. Then I just hit OK. And if you have removed it from the C drive, you probably will get a message saying that, you sure you want to do that. Go ahead, it's okay, just as long as you have virtual memory on another location. And it'll choose that. And I'm going to hit OK. And hit OK. And everything's set. At this point, I need to reboot the system so those changes go in place. So I'll see you in just a minute. Well, now the memory has been installed. The virtual memory has been changed. We've rebooted the computer now. Now let's take a look and see if everything looks right. So I'm going to take you out to System Properties again, and we'll take a look. And so what I'm going to do is go to System Properties, and I'm going to click on, in this case, going back to the system, and I'm going to go to the storage option, settings, and you'll see that this will come up. And what I'm going to do, since I know that I've changed things to be on the U drive, I'm going to change that by switching over to this advanced storage settings, where it says use other drives. So it's going to look other than on the C drive. So I'm going to click on the U drive, and I'll come down here to where it says System and Reserve, and we'll see now that we've got 32.2 gigabytes of virtual memory on the U drive. So we're just set as we had planned on. We're taking advantage of all the memory plus the ability to use the virtual memory. And so we are basically, at this point, happy campers. We've installed our memory. We've checked our virtual memory as well and configured it. We've rebooted, we've checked and assured that everything's working correctly. And in fact, I noticed a little bit of a performance change already. So we've learned how to do the research, to use CPU-Z to check on what we have currently, to go out to a website like Newegg to look at their memory configuration, to physically install the memory into the computer itself, watching that we make certain we unplug everything, that we ground ourselves out so we don't have any electrostatic discharge, and we press the power button for 4 seconds to remove any residual power in the system. So with that, we've got it installed. Everything's been configured. We've double checked. We're happy campers at this point because we see that not only are the changes we've made showing up correctly, but I sense things are going a little faster in the system. So I've actually noticed a performance change. Now I can run some other statistics and see that change, but I assure you that there is a little bit of change I've already noticed. So I hope that you'll try to go and check your own computer, maybe upgrade the memory if you feel yours is becoming a little sluggish, and do the virtual memory change as well so that you get the balance of your new physical memory plus your virtual memory. Together, they give you great performance. So take care. Have a great day.